Welcome to another episode of Ambitious. Do you want to introduce yourself, tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I guess so. Do my little 30-second elevator pitch.
Yeah.
I'm Jeremiah Svaren, specifically. If we want to get real specific.
A lot of Jeremiahs out there.
Yes, so many.
The more specific we can be, the better.
I am not the one from the Bible, and I'm not named after the Jeremiah from the Bible.
And I am named after the Ammon in the Bible. Well, the Book of Mormon, to be specific.
Oh, yeah. We want to be specific.
Right.
I was named after Jeremiah the Mountain Man, born and raised in Ashland, and I currently am sifting through life and building up my business with web design and search engine optimization and like branching out this huge octopus of like courses and tutorials on YouTube and kind of just trying all sorts of different things.
You were the influence for this video version.
Yeah, I really was pushing you pretty hard to start recording this thing, put it on YouTube.
Yeah, it's just one more platform to push it out to.
Yeah, and I'm kind of a YouTube junkie.
You have your own podcast, don't you?
I do. I've got
YouTube?
Conspiracy podcasts where we play with ideas that might get you and me canceled. So if you like dangerous ideas...
Is that your guys' like...
It's a tagline,
your
yeah.
tagline?
Yeah. So if you want to get FBI rated or, blacklisted off of Facebook, then be sure to give it a listen.
Tune in.
Yeah. That's kind of my fun side hustle, like escape from work, but it's still kind of, just creating content and having fun.
Yeah, this is too. For me, I make very, very minimal money doing this. I mean, considering how much time I put into it, like just to sit down and record these and to coordinate with people and then to edit them and post them and all that, I don't make any money.
Right. Yeah.
But I have a few sponsors, but it's, very minimal.
But you never know where something like this is going to take you to like connect with people. And I mean, that's something that I keep pushing with my buddy co-host on our podcast is like, well, for one, he's like, I want to be rich. And I was like, okay, well, we'll get there.
That's his goal.
His goal is to be able to quit working at his day job, which I think is totally possible. If we put enough time and effort into it. And I think anything, that the power of the internet's pretty freaking crazy. True. And I've seen a lot of people build up personal brands or, really small things into something that makes them like well over 6 figures a year.
Jesus.
And then they start to have a little team around them. And I mean, it's pretty nuts what's capable if you just start creating content and sticking with it.
True. I just realized I forgot to turn off my dryer.
Oh, geez.
It's going to be loud background noise. Hold on.
I forgot to do it. At least you remembered now and not later, huh? Not at the end where it's like, oh, shoot, can we record that whole thing?
Start over.
Yeah. Or you should have just left it running and then nobody would have ever noticed. But now people are going to be like, oh my God, what was going on in that intro?
Apologies, everyone. My bad. I should be more professional. And excuse my disaster of an apartment.
This just shows that Ammon's working his ass off and that he doesn't have time to clean up after himself.
This is symbolic of frustration. That's what that is right now.
Yeah.
I can't get that damn Mac Mini to... Anyway, I'm not going to get into it. It's going to re-frustrate me. Well,
and it's also like total Black Mirror worker privilege. Like,
oh, yeah.
We make our living by spending most of our time behind a computer screen all day long. Mm-hmm. And like the frustrations that come with that. Dude. I mean, they are extremely frustrating and
specific.
Yeah. Versus like, I feel like in most situations where you're working out in the real material world.
Yeah.
Hello, Barbie girl. You actually can like work through things a little bit easier and like brute force your way through things.
Yeah.
But with computer work, it feels just like sludge, like you're just working through sludge.
Yeah, like you're not really in charge. You're kind of at the mercy of a Reddit forum.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's annoying. So you and I know each other through work, through Northwest Raw, which we did a podcast on that platform once before, where you
Yeah.
talked about your 1,000-mile bike race.
Yes, indeedy.
And then we just like became friends and started working together through Raw. And now we've kind of done some work together with Artifacts.
Yep.
We both work for them. And you've helped me with my website. I helped you with your headshots.
Some stunning headshots. You might have to just like throw up a little like.
Yeah, I'll put one on the frame.
Yeah.
Which one do you want me to use?
I
The
don't
favorite?
know. Any of them. I love them all. I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
That actually really inspired me to get into like men's fashion photo
Oh,
shoots.
nice.
So just because I don't work with a lot of men in my field, I work with it's photography.
Right.
So I'm mostly working with women, and I do shoot with men, but it's like the woman it's like the wife who contacted me and made her husband come.
Sure.
Or it's a wedding, but it's always working through the bride. And as I've gotten into videography, I do work with more men because I don't know, that I just do more video work with men. Like Artifacts, it's an all-male team.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But then when you hired me for the photo shoot, for the headshots, I was like, dude, working with dudes is like, it's a whole new experience. The editing style is different because you don't have to be as like soft. Like
Yeah, it's a little bit more like edgy almost, and like.
Yeah, and for people who know Lightroom, the clarity slider or the texture slider, you usually slide it down with females because you want it to look dreamy and soft, and their skin to be like completely invisible of pores. You don't have any blemishes, no pores. But with men, like I just shot this other guy, my friend Ben, in Medford, and it was downtown, it was urban, and it was fashion focused. And I was like sliding the clarity up almost all the way. The texture was up, and so his face just looked really grungy and nice.
Nice.
Like you could see a lot of the texture.
Yeah.
And it was fine. So you inspired me, so thank you.
Well, thank you. I really enjoyed that photo shoot. I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, so did I.
And I think, you're right. Most men don't go out and get, like that's not their wish of like what they want to spend their excess marketing dollars on or their extra money. But I think it goes a long way to have a professional photo shoot. And it just like makes you feel more confident, and you can then use it for, whatever you're doing.
Most men just use it for business.
Right.
Like they want to use it for their professional profile picture or their business cards or for whatever, their social media, but it's for business. Women are more for the sentimental value or the memory.
Instagram.
Yeah.
The grammable moment.
Yes.
Whereas men are like, can I make money with this?
Exactly.
Yes. Sign me up.
Exactly. I should probably dissect that. I wonder why that is.
I don't know. I mean, I think, business is an interesting thing for me. Like, I feel like I could just put my energy towards business nonstop forever and never get tired of it. Mm-hmm. I think that there's something about building something bigger than just like what's in front of you. And I don't know, like, I mean, it's certainly an entrepreneurial tendency, not every man feels that way.
Yeah.
But like my girlfriend, Ashley, she is an entrepreneur and has a couple businesses, and it's still a little bit different, like what she focuses on her business is different than what I focus on in my business. Mm-hmm. She's more about like the packaging and the product and like how it looks.
Which is really important.
Definitely, especially in her world where it's like cross-stitch kits and they're coming in the mail from Etsy.
I don't think I've ever met her.
No, you might not have. I don't know. Maybe not. That's a good point. Yeah, she kind of is pretty much just working all the time. And
yeah, I might have.
Maybe.
I might have seen you with her one time, but yeah, I don't know if I've...
In passing at Raw or something like that,
something.
Maybe. But she isn't really as like concerned as much as I am about like pushing and like, like trying to hit bigger numbers and like trying to like go more and more. She's just like, I just want to like create this stuff and like people will buy it.
Yeah.
Versus I'm like must brute force my way through like anything possible.
You're like cold calling.
Yes.
That kind of stuff. So with this podcast, I started out with the title Ambition because I wanted to focus on ambitious types of people. And I mostly talked about business. Sometimes I'd talk about work, like my photography. But then over the years, it slowly started to transform into talking about religion, which I don't super love talking about all the time, but that just is such a big part of my life that I'm unraveling.
Sure.
But it's also morphed into relationships, which I'm actually really interested in. And you have a very specific type of relationship with your dad right now, which I wanted to dive into, if that's cool.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, cool.
And I'll say that, we talked briefly about how I went on a 1,000-mile bike ride, and I feel like I'm at like mile 100 sitting down at a gas station eating some Sour Patch Kids and like enjoying this moment, but knowing that I still have 900 miles to go and that it's like just getting started. Yeah. And that's kind of what my life feels like right now.
It's a good analogy.
Yeah.
At least there's a silver lining, Sour Patch Kids.
Oh, yeah. And like sitting on a bench and like relaxing for a minute.
So how does that relate to what your life is like now?
It feels like a never-ending marathon right now. So to kind of, how do I preface this? Kind of like a synopsis of what's gone on in the last 3 months or so. A lot of things have happened recently where my dad is now living on the property with me, my girlfriend, my mother, and her boyfriend.
So help me with the visual of your property. So you live in like a big trailer, right?
Yeah. So me and Ashley live in a fifth wheel trailer. And then my dad has a motorhome that we drove up from Texas just before Thanksgiving.
And you drove all the way to Texas, like nonstop, right?
Yeah. So me and my so my dad was starting to have kind of some mental health scares where he's kind of always had these what do you want to say, idiosyncrasies of like just kind of these weird behaviors. And we kind of always just chalked it up to, well, dad did a lot of drugs when he was younger. Oh. And some people said like it's like he just like took something out of his brain and said, I don't need that.
Is that what drugs does?
I think that's what a lot of drugs does.
Sure. Depends on the amount and the type.
And I mean, there wasn't really a limit, it was kind of all over the board. And so it used to be that when you talk to him on the phone, this is like as far as back as I can remember when I was a kid, and I'm 27 now, is if you were talking to him on the phone, occasionally he would get into this like loop that we call it, where he just goes, okay. Yeah, I'm just doing this right now. I'm just, just doing laundry right now. Okay. And when you would try to talk to him, it was almost like he wasn't registering, like he wasn't able to respond to you specifically asking a question.
Where he would just talk endlessly?
Just about. I mean, he would just kind of just be in his own circle of, okay. Yeah, I'm just doing this right now. Okay. And then it would be like a really short conversation. So it was almost like, like a nervous thing or something like that. And
so he's always been that way?
Yeah, but it was always a very minute, like it wouldn't
like
last.
Maybe it was
for
just
very
a
long.
personality thing?
Yeah, and like, he used to get mad at me when I had braces, when I would call him on the phone because he couldn't understand me because I wouldn't clear my palate all the way before I started talking.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I would have like a little bit of
just like slurring with tons of saliva in your mouth.
What do you mean you can't understand me?
Gross. Were you and him pretty close when you were a kid?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of, it was kind of in waves. So
your parents divorced when you were fairly young, right?
Yeah, I was like in kindergarten when they got divorced.
Okay.
And I was a bastard child. Ayo.
Wait, what? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was born out of wedlock. So
oh yeah, that's what that means.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, wait, what is a bastard again? What's the definition of bastard?
That's like what most kids are these days.
Yeah.
So my parents got married when I was like a year old or something like that. And then when I was in, I think it was kindergarten or first grade, they got a divorce. And so then it was kind of like the week on, week off thing. And
going back and forth between the houses.
Right. So like never really feeling like there was any sort of structure or anything like that. Like you're just packing up your life every weekend to move from one place to the other.
Got it.
And he was a good role model in certain senses. Like he worked his ass off and like expected the same, like you almost have to like, we're splitting firewood, and we're gonna like fill this dump truck full of firewood today, and we're gonna go stack it all.
So he's kind of a nose to the grind type of guy.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I mean, we were always doing stuff, fixing stuff. But he was quite the drinker when I was younger. And so that kind of had an effect on things, just kind of would make it so that you didn't really know. You're kind of on eggshells. Like, is he in a good mood right now? Is he in a bad mood? How is this going to play out? And
was that ever like scary for you as a kid?
There was only a few times where it kind of got scary, but it never, like, there was never anything physical. It was more just like a lot of yelling.
Oh, okay.
So emotional.
Could be worse, I suppose.
Yeah. And I mean, then it certainly got to the point where when I started getting older, then I started to yell back because, you're just like...
I can't picture you angry ever.
Oh, man, I used to freaking boil. Yeah, there was a few times where it was like, it would just, I don't know, get
I just can't see it. I've only ever seen you with a smile on your face.
No, that's good. I mean, I definitely have come a long way, and I used to be kind of an angry child, I think, at certain points in my like teenage youth.
Is that why you started smoking weed, to like chill you out?
I
mean, you're off it now. You haven't smoked for
over a year now.
Yeah. Congrats.
Thank you. It's nice. Yeah, I don't know. I started smoking weed because my dad's bike got stolen from the high school, and it was like, well, today any day is gonna be a day to try smoking weed. I guess it might as well be today.
Such a random reason.
Well,
I thought it was just because you live in Oregon.
Well, it was part of that. I mean, people had kind of, the crew that I was hanging out with was quite the stoner crowd, and
you went to school with Braden, right?
Yeah.
All through.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, because you guys had moved at one point,
right,
back to Utah or something like that for a minute, and then
to
you guys
Vegas
moved back.
and then to the coast.
Excuse my
How dare you.
assumption there that the Mormons went back to Utah.
Well, I did go to Utah for like 10 years.
Yeah, it's true. But you as a family, you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't ever live in Utah with the family, but we did live in Vegas and then in Coquille.
Okay.
On the coast.
That's right.
But so when did you meet Braden?
We met in like third grade back at Bellevue, and we hit it off. We were good buddies. Yeah. I probably met you way back when at like Braden's birthday party.
Probably.
I just remember being like, wow, there's a lot of kids here.
Dude, welcome to Mormonism.
And they're all blonde.
Not to talk about religion, sorry.
But yeah, so I knew Braden a long time, and then we kind of reconnected in high school, and I was hanging out with a couple other Mormons at the time. So every now and then I'd be over at the seminary school. I'd go over there, the
seminary building across the street from the high school.
Yeah. So I had a really weird, like, I'd had a group of friends that were a bunch of stoners and partiers, and I had a group of friends that were Mormon and
wow, the exact opposite.
Clean and sober. Yeah,
very
so
polarizing.
My life, right? Like,
yeah.
I guess I just like to jump between the two worlds of like chaos and order. It was kind of an interesting...
I guess so. Well, sorry to hijack your story.
No, you're good.
To go on a tangent down weed and then Braden and then Mormonism.
Yeah. Well, no, so part of the weed thing is that my dad was smoking weed when I was a kid. And so I saw that and I thought, well, maybe it's not too bad. So that was probably a bad influence, right? Because it's like,
yeah,
maybe a 14-year-old shouldn't be thinking about smoking weed. But so that
is pretty young.
Yeah, I was
start
pretty young.
Smoking.
Yeah, definitely not good for my brain.
I don't think that drugs and alcohol of any kind, besides like prescribed ones, should be used by anybody that's like under like 25.
Yeah, because I definitely, when I got older, I started to kind of freak out about the damage. I'm like, did I like make myself retarded?
Right, because your brain is like, your frontal lobes aren't even fully developed till you're 24.
Yeah.
And thinking back to when I was 20, even like 28, I'm 32 now, and I feel like a completely different person.
Oh, right.
And there's a lot of factors in there, like religion, transition, and divorce. And so just like redefining my identity completely.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel really fortunate that I was Mormon.
Yeah.
In a way, because it forced me. I mean, I made the choice myself, but I had the influence of the
You had
Mormon
some
church.
guardrails kind of up to like
Yeah.
help keep you on this path for a while.
Yeah, on the sober path until I was 30.
Yeah.
And then somebody threw me a White Claw, and I was like, whatever, fine. I was at a wedding. I was actually working.
There you go. Get
It
paid
was
to
fun.
party.
Yeah, it was super fun. We actually, the night before, I showed up at the wedding because it was at this place in Mackenzie Bridge. I forget the name of the venue, but it's got these A-frame cabins. It's super gorgeous, outdoor. And I got there the night before because they gave me a cabin all to myself, which was amazing. I had just broken up with my current girlfriend at the time, which we've gotten back together since. But we just broken up. I was at rock bottom, had no money.
So you thought, why not drag myself
Yeah, I was
across
like, I
rock
might
bottom
as well
for a
just
minute?
start down the drugs and alcohol. And so I just, me and the bride and the bridesmaids all went behind the main venue and smoked weed together.
Nice.
And then the next day, during the actual wedding, somebody just tossed me a White Claw, and I just had one. And then the next day, I went to Africa and had some beer there. But I already smoked weed with my brother like a few months before that. And I don't really.
So it was the gateway drug, huh?
Weed was the gateway, I suppose. Actually, it wasn't weed per se. It was more just ADHD. It led me down a research rabbit hole of like what helps with focus, what helps like with mental clarity.
Yeah.
And there were some studies that were just saying that weed helps some people with focus.
Yeah.
I don't know what your experience is with it, but I have not found a strain that helps me. I guess it helps me with like deeper rabbit hole thinking, but it doesn't help with my focus. It enhances brain fog for me. It makes me paranoid. It does help me sleep though, and it helps with like jitters.
Yeah.
So I use it for sleep sometimes, occasionally, but I don't want to like rely on it for
Yeah, definitely.
sleep, so I use it very sparingly.
I mean, I did notice that's kind of why I started smoking again after high school, because I had all sorts of, what do I say, sobering moments in high school, where threw a too big of a party and didn't clean it up in time, and got caught, and then also got a MIP at one point.
What's MIP?
Minor in possession.
Oh, okay, got it. That's what I was gonna guess.
For a little bit of weed, and so then I had to do some P tests for like a week and do diversion classes and stuff like that. So there were a few forced moments of sobriety when I was in high school, and then I would occasionally kind of get fully off of it in high school, just kind of by choice. And then after high school, I didn't really have any desire. I'd kind of figured out a way, I guess, to cope with reality outside without smoking.
Yeah.
My motorcycle probably helped with that a whole lot, because I didn't want to get high and ride my motorcycle.
Smart.
Do
you still ride?
No, I haven't ridden in a long time. I miss that dearly, but so that kind of helped me get through that, and we lived in Reno for a little bit, so there was like no real. It's not like it was accessible. I didn't know anybody who was smoking weed, and it wasn't legal at the state yet. But then it got legal here in Oregon after we'd moved back, and my addictive personality just like is like, oh, it's okay to smoke it once. Like,
Do you have
it's
one of
fine.
those?
Oh yeah,
Addictive personality.
Well, I mean, this is the dude who went for a 50-mile bike ride and thought 1,000 miles sounds fucking great.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Sorry for the cussing there.
No, it's okay. Don't you listen to this podcast? I swear all the time.
Oh, well, it's more of just like oh yeah, I'm mic'd up here. Should I not be?
Nah, you're fine. I think it makes people more real.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you want to cut it out, I can cut it out.
No,
We want to
you're
remain
good.
professional.
You're good. I mean, we're already talking about a bunch of other things, anyways.
So tell me more about your dad. So your parents got divorced when you were young, back and forth. You were afraid of him when he was drinking, and then he was living in Texas.
Yeah, so when I graduated high school, he was still living in Ashland, and he was born and raised in Ashland and basically lived in Ashland his whole life.
Okay.
Up until he was about 50. Maybe a little bit after 50.
How old is he now?
He is 64.
Okay.
Yeah, 64. He'll be 65 next year. And so I guess it was about 7 years ago, 7.5, 8 years ago, that he moved to Texas. Kind of due to some circumstances with family, selling the property that he had been living on kind of as a landlord. That was like this family property. And he ended up moving to Texas because that's where his girlfriend at the time was living. And it was kind of like his only option, because he wasn't really working at the time. And so he was kind of just trying to like grasp at, straws, and like, well, this door opened of this girlfriend that he's been kind of dating, and she'd come up to visit him and stayed with him a few times. So it was like, well, she just bought a house and needs help fixing it up, and what else am I going to do? So
Yeah.
to Texas, here I go.
Well, my cat might be coming in. Saki bear.
Hi, kitty. Garfield.
Yeah, she looks like a little pumpkin loaf, huh?
A little bit. Hi.
She'll be fine.
And so he moved down there, and she didn't really know that he had these kind of little loops, and
His girlfriend?
yeah, I guess either it didn't happen while she was around, but I swear it had happened to when she was around, or she didn't realize the extent of it, maybe. And it's something where like I'm explaining it to you right now, but it's like you really like don't get the full picture of it until you experience it, and it's pretty wild.
How long would these loops go for? And he would just repeat the same thing?
Basically, he would just like repeat, okay, and not really. If you tried to talk to him, he'd be like, yeah, okay. And so it wasn't.
Like he wasn't really listening to you?
Yeah, that's what it seemed like. But it's
just kind of robot mode?
Yeah, definitely. Like it almost seemed like he like put on like the do not disturb sign or something like that. And
I mean, I can kind of relate to that in a way where I just sort of enter this like default mode autopilot where I'm thinking about stuff.
Somebody's talking to you, and
and I'm like, sorry, what? Like Taylor will get home and just tell me about her day, and I'll just like promptly forget everything.
Yeah.
And it's been a source of contention.
Oh, for sure.
It's hard to.
Yeah.
So that's like begun this whole journey with Adderall, and at first it was weed, trying to figure out if that would help. Didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway.
Well, so what's interesting about the weed part is that actually seemed to help my dad previously when I was younger. I remember when he was dating a different woman when I was younger in high school, she kind of made the connection, her kids kind of made the connection that if he smokes, then it almost like helps reset him, and it kind of helps him like pull out of his shell. Cause it's almost like he would also kind of like go into his shell a little bit. He'd like go into the bedroom, or like, he wouldn't want to be around the party, or like be around where everybody's at. And so that was kind of a connection that somebody had made. And I didn't really think too much about it till later on, when he was down in Texas, and the girlfriend down there was bound and determined to figure out what's going on with him and get him healed. And he's been to all sorts of doctors and neurologists, and had all sorts of tests and wires hooked up to him. He's even had like an EEG machine hooked up to him for like a full weekend with like a camera on him and everything, so they can see what's going on when he like goes into these states.
What's an EEG? Like measuring your
your brain waves.
Right. Okay.
So they can see like when you're in like alpha and beta and theta, and like.
Oh, okay.
And I think they can also kind of see like just the activity level and like where it's at.
Did they ever find out what it was?
So
learn anything from that?
The only conclusion that they have right now is that he's having like minute seizures in the brain.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was like a legit, like something wrong was going on.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like ADHD or just he was just checking out or distracted by his own thoughts. It was like an actual micro seizure.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the only answer that we have so far. And sometimes it seems like he's able to kind of control when they happen almost. Like it seems like it's an anxiety thing. Like there's certain triggers for him almost. And it seemed like his girlfriend was a large source of them in my family's opinion. Whenever we go down to visit, she was a very like stress. Like I even felt like, oh my God, I just like me and Ashley lived with them for a month, not even a month. We were just gonna live there. So to back
Texas?
it up, yeah. So me and Ashley, when we were living in Portland, our lease was coming up, and we thought, well, we can either move across the city or we can move across the country. And my dad was already in Texas, and it was like, oh, you guys can stay here while you like figure out where you want to live and, get jobs and all that. And so we moved down there, and like within a week, me and my girlfriend were like, we can't keep living here. Like,
yeah. You didn't like Texas?
Well, we didn't like living under my dad's girlfriend at the time's roof because she was very like controlling and
anxiety provoking.
Yeah, and I didn't like how she treated my dad when he went into little spells. She was very aggressive with him and like would almost seem like she thought that being aggressive or like yelling at him would help him get out. But it's like
she didn't have a lot of patience.
I guess not. I don't know. I mean, it was she's I'm sure has her own walk of life to go down and to figure out.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was like I just didn't feel like it was a safe space for him to be in. And
which part of Texas?
It was just north of Austin.
Did you like it there?
To some degree. We liked parts of it. I liked the food there. The weather was nice when it was, except for when it wasn't. When it was like pouring rain, it was like raining like a monsoon and like thunderbolts and lightning.
Yeah.
And like flooding everywhere. And I hated the traffic. Like that can just, oh my gosh.
It's probably just gotten worse.
Oh yeah, it's horrible.
Probably not as bad as like other cities, Chicago or LA.
Probably not. It definitely has a problem though with the fact just the number of people that are moving there per day. I can't remember what the number was, but it was something crazy. And,
well, thanks to like Elon Musk and Joe Rogan.
Oh yeah, it's getting even worse.
It's like probably 400 people a day. I heard somewhere it was like 400 people a day.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we didn't live down there for too long before we decided to move back home. Ashley was kind of getting homesick, and most of the rest of our family was up here. And that was 4 years ago.
Oh, I didn't realize you only been back for 4 years.
I think it's been 4 or 5 years. I can't remember what year it was. But yeah, it's been, I think, 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like we only said we were going to be here for, a year to figure our stuff out and then move back out. But
yeah,
the vortex of the Rogue Valley has kept us here.
It is a thing.
It's weird, huh?
It is weird. I think that I found a solution though.
Yeah. Tell me.
I think so. To the vortex. Because my family's lived here on and off like for my whole life. And as an adult, you really feel it, especially in the winter time. It just gets gloomy and depressing here. It's wet and nobody's outside and just hibernating. And so the solution I found is to plan a trip every month. Once a month, you just go somewhere. Even if it's just to the coast, just somewhere. Just get out of the valley. So I plan a trip every single month. I get on a plane or I just take a road trip somewhere.
Nice.
And I don't really feel it that much.
That sounds nice.
I just booked a trip to Tulum, Mexico.
Oh, nice.
In February.
Right on.
Yeah,
It'll be nice and warm down there,
12 days. Yeah, it's going to be like 80s in February.
Nice.
Yeah.
That'll be just what you need after the cold spell around that time.
I bought some sunless tanner to try and tan myself.
Oh boy.
Before I get down
there. To try not to look like too much of a white boy when you go down there?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of for the look, but it's also just to see if it can help me not get so burned when I'm there. But I don't know if my stupid brain was just like, yeah, maybe if this cream will help protect my skin when I'm down there.
Right.
We'll see. Then you're back in Oregon, and then you mentioned before that you had to drive down to Texas or over to Texas, pick him up because what was going on? So
he was starting to have episodes that were lasting, like what would end up happening is it'd be the middle of the night and me or my sister would get a phone call saying your dad is in the hospital. He was wandering around lost in the middle of the night. And so he would just like feel like he needed to go drive somewhere, but he would get lost and not remember how to use his GPS to get back home. And sometimes he would do it and his phone battery would be like almost dead and he'd be almost out of gas by the time he gets stopped. And so he kind of started to become a frequent flyer.
Was his girlfriend in the picture still?
No, so they'd kind of started splitting up. She had started to get done with it, and he was done with her because he didn't really, he was starting to get to the point where he didn't appreciate how she was acting towards him, and it just, he didn't like the feeling of not knowing what he was going to come home to.
Yeah. It's understandable.
Yeah, and, it was kind of like he was having a tough time, and, he wasn't really getting the support and, like, the caring that he needed to have.
So he started becoming a frequent flyer because of these episodes. But it sounds like it was more than just these loops.
Yeah,
he
so...
would start to, like, lose it?
Well, so he was...
I'm going to take my shoes off.
Get a little more comfortable.
Yeah.
So he would... Most of these things were happening in the middle of the night. And occasionally, me and my sister, she's up in near Portland, and I'm here in Oregon, Southern Oregon.
It's just the two of you?
Yeah, we're his only kids. And so, like, we're the closest of kin, but it's like, well, we're 3,000 miles away right now. Like, we can only do so much from here. And, at one point we thought, one of the hospitals ended up taking him in and running a whole bunch of tests on him and realizing that his dosage on one of the anti-seizure medications was too low. And so they upped that and, kind of like that was their, okay, we fixed him and he seems to be good. So, he can go home now.
Yeah.
But what happens is that he does get into the states where it's like he seems totally 100% normal and coherent and like everything's fine. And that can last like 24 hours, 48 hours. But then you never know when he's going to start to lose it. That one's a little bit more adventurous, huh?
That's Goose. Yeah, he's a kitten. So he'll probably just roam.
Nice.
So the episodes were lasting a little longer?
Yeah, they've definitely have increased, and it seemed like, there was one time where just from what we were monitoring up here, through phone calls and through the hospitals and stuff, is that he was in a loop for at least 24 hours where they couldn't get through to him.
Oh, wow.
Which gets pretty nerve-wracking because, then you start to realize, well, has this been happening frequently? Is he remembered to take his meds at the right time? Is he taking the right amount? Is he drinking enough water? Is he eating enough food?
Yeah.
And so finally, after like basically it was happening like once a week for like 3 weeks.
Wow.
And like the last time that happened, he went to the hospital, came home, and then went back to the hospital like 5 or 6 hours later.
So that was kind of a turning point where you're like, something needs to change.
Yeah. I had previously, like told my dad, like, okay, when are you ready to move up here? Like, we want you to be back home where you're closer to family. We can take care of you and help you. And he really wanted to finish working. He was working at the time for a company contracted by Dell to like move stuff around. They were like, when all the old stuff from Dell in the offices and the server rooms would be no more, him and the crew of 2 other guys would come in and like clean it all out and like.
So he was still able to hold a job at the time?
He was at the time, but he was starting to have episodes at work that was affecting work.
Yeah.
Whereas previously his episodes really wouldn't affect it too much. Like he was still able to get work done. Mm-hmm. It's just that people couldn't really like have a fresh conversation with him. He would just be like focused on the task at hand.
Yeah.
But it started to get where there was one time where he got called on by the security guard at work because I think he was having like he was having a heat stroke almost.
Hot flashes.
Yeah. And it gets really hot down there in the summertime, and he just wasn't. I don't think he was able to like comprehend trying to like cool himself down and like drinking water and sometimes he gets in the states where it's like you kind of have to help him regulate his body a little bit of like, oh, well, let's take your jacket off, like,
Oh yeah.
so you kind of almost have to start to be a helping hand for him at that time. And so that's when it was starting to get worse and
Concerning.
Yeah. Well, and he wanted to finish out work through March. And it was like, okay, well, like then come March, like, we can't really just like come down any time because the weather's going to start to turn and it's going to be hard to drive down there and back safely.
Yeah.
And bring a motorhome back at the same time. And so it's like, okay, well, March it is, that was kind of like the plan. And we thought, well, these new doctors came out with a new, regimen for him. Like, so it should be all good. But it didn't turn out to be that way. And then come to find out he hadn't been to work in like 3 weeks and he was kind of put onto like work hold. And so it was kind of like, okay, the situation is a lot worse than he was kind of letting up to be.
Yeah.
And so that final time while my dad was still in the hospital, me and my sister are like freaking going gangbusters trying to like, she's packing her bag, buying a flight to fly from Portland down there within like 12 hours. Like she's like getting ready to hop on a plane as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. I'm getting my truck ready to drive halfway across the country.
This one?
Yeah. And so I like had to go get new tires. I had to go find a canopy and put a canopy on and like get all this stuff lined up in order. Dang, to basically,
that's a lot.
Yeah. So like within like 24 hours, me and my mom was super, like she'd been willing to help from the beginning. And
oh, that's cool.
Yeah, because she knows that he needs help and that it's my father and she wants to help me take care of him.
That's cool that she was so supportive.
Yeah, I mean, and she knew that he needed to come home, and she's been quite the caregiver before. Like she's caregiving for elderly people in the past, so she kind of understands that like mental slippage that happens and like how to take care of people.
Yeah.
And so, and then her boyfriend was super gracious and said like, hey, he can park his motorhome on the property here and like, try to get him established here and, how to have a place for him to be where he's close by. And so me and my mom basically that next morning at like, I think it was like 6 or 7 a.m. pulled out, with the truck and drove for 41 hours.
Jeez. Stopped
once in Phoenix for a nap at my I don't know how you would say it, my sister's mother, who's the first ex-wife of my dad.
Okay.
She lives in Phoenix, Arizona, and she opened up her house for us to stay the night there. We pull in at like 2:00 in the morning there, sleep for like 6 hours, and then get back on the road again to Texas. And then
jeez, dude,
we're in Texas and we're trying to get him. So something that happens occasionally is when he gets in these episodes, he starts to thinks he needs to fix something. Mm-hmm. And he usually ends up breaking whatever was not broken to begin with. And so like his RV needed some work because he went on like a fixing spree this last time.
Yeah.
And so
just destroyed it.
Well, yeah, pretty much like pulled piping apart and like cut wires and
so
all
was
sorts
it just
of stuff.
Was it just the seizures or was it something else that was happening?
Well, that's the weird thing is like it seems like there's more than just the seizures because they now seem like on a different level.
It sounds kind of like dementia.
Yeah, and the problem with the terms of dementia and Alzheimer's is that they are such blanket terms that they don't, they can describe a wide variety of things.
There's like subcategories inside of those terms.
Yeah, and like even then it's kind of like if you have memory loss issues of this certain caliber, then they call it dementia. But it's weird because it's mostly, like it's just odd because he's almost aware of when he's in a loop, when he's in an episode, he can remember a lot of the things you talked about and like what was going on at that time at a later point. when he's coherent, so he can like remember all that.
Yeah.
And it's like there's varying degrees of like how far into an episode he is, and part of me is also curious about these anti-seizure medications that he's on, because the side effects on those are huge.
Oh yeah, I bet.
And depression and anxiety and like mood changes is some big ones with those.
Right.
And so sometimes I'm kind of curious like how much that is having an effect on things.
Right. Probably a lot.
Right. But then it's also like, well, is it going to be worse if he's not
stops
on
the
them?
medication.
Yeah. So we're trying to get things reestablished up here, along with doing other things, like cleaning up his diet and making sure that he's eating good, and making sure that he's getting his proper dosages of medication, because there was a couple times where once he moved back here, so down there in Texas, when we got there, we were like basically packing up his motorhome and trying to get him to, get everything all ready to go. And so my mom was down there, I was down there, and then my sister was down there. And so between the three of us, one of us was kind of having to spend time with my dad to kind of keep him occupied and busy, so that, because it seemed like the stress of the move was kind of affecting him a bit.
Yeah.
And, we didn't want to overload him with like having him be responsible for getting everything ready, and,
Right.
Didn't want to overbear him. And also just, it's so much faster if somebody can just like swoop in and do stuff while the person isn't looking and paying attention. Like, oh wait,
yeah.
no, I want it like this.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we just need to like go. Luckily he had like some really great friends down there that he had met who were super gracious and helped us a lot.
Nice.
So that's super awesome that he had good friends that, took care of him. And, he was helping them with projects around their house and RV and stuff like that. And, was still super helpful when he was having moments of spaciness and, not able to function fully.
How's it been now that he's back home living with you?
So things seemed to be doing a whole lot better, because he seemed to be, we were creating a routine and things seemed to be doing pretty good. But then there started to be a few different episodes kind of happening in the nighttime. Like he would always run out of propane in the night, because the propane's like what he uses to keep the furnace going in the motorhome to stay warm.
So he's in motorhome, you're in the fifth wheel.
Yeah.
And then your mom and her boyfriend are in a house?
Yeah. And so that's like
all on the same property?
Yeah. And they're all pretty close. I mean, there's 300 acres, but this like one parcel that we're on together is like, it's like a 20-acre parcel, but we're pretty close, like parked next to a barn that's just like 100 yards away probably.
Oh, okay.
From the house. But it started to get to where, I would have to like help him get down to sleep at night sometimes, make sure that he's actually going to go lay down and go to sleep and not like fiddle on his phone all night long.
Oh yeah. So, geez, dude, it's like babysitting 24/7.
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, it's rough, because there are times where, he's fully like my dad still, and like, trying to help me and give me advice.
Oh yeah.
And then like 20 minutes later, it can be like a total role reversal where it's like I'm parenting my dad and helping him.
What happens for you, like emotionally? What's that feel like to have to be that kind of a role for your dad? And I know that for a lot of people that happens where, your parents are getting older and you kind of have to help them or teach them certain things that, whatever, like whether it's how to log into their computer or whatever. But for you, in your specific unique situation, it's like legit parenting where you have to get them ready for bed, or tell them to take off their jacket, or I mean, is that the extent of it?
I mean, sometimes it's you kind of almost have to like follow along behind him and make sure that he's like remembering certain things, or
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes he doesn't remember to close the door to the bathroom when he's going to go to the bathroom, or
Oh yeah.
he kind of gets sometimes like hyper focused on things because he kind of has like OCD to begin with already.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like sometimes he'll get like one track minded on something, and you almost have to like distract him to try
Oh,
to get him
yeah.
kind of off of that.
How does that feel for you emotionally?
It's draining for sure. A lot of times in the moment I try and like I'm not really thinking about it. I'm just like I just need to do this right now.
Mm.
Um,
So you're gonna have to dissociate yourself from it or distract yourself from what's really happening.
a little bit. I mean, I don't feel like I'm distracting myself. It's probably just like an automatic like,
Jump into just duty mode.
yeah, it's just like, no, I'm just like, this is what you have to do right now. And like, it's kind of like you don't do it because you want to do it. You do it because you need to do it.
True.
It's like,
You don't really have a choice.
yeah. And I mean, it's just like, if you show up to go to work one day and like, you really don't want to go to work, but everybody there is depending on you. So
Yeah.
you just show up and you do what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it definitely feels like that a lot. But I mean, there are times where it's like, fuck.
Do you ever like stop and just kind of process that a little bit?
Sometimes,
This is fucking hard.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Just think about it for a while and let the emotions kind of flow.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely been like some breakdown moments where it's like, fuck, man, this is my life for a while and this is his life. And Jesus Christ, what's going to happen to me when I get old?
Oh yeah.
Like that kind of definitely goes through my head of like, because my grandpa got dementia when he was older.
Oh wow.
And he kind of also had some like weird little like behaviors that now I start to see in my dad a little bit, and my dad is starting to see his father in him also.
Oh gotcha.
And so it's this really weird like father son thing going on, which I kind of started to make the connection of last night.
So naturally, it kind of makes you worry about your future.
Yes, and
How long has he been with you now?
so he's been with me since like just after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So like a month and a half or so.
Okay.
And he's definitely had some emotional moments too, where he's starting to think a lot about his dad, my grandpa,
Mm-hmm.
and that he wasn't able to be there in the end of his life. My grandpa had kind of got moved into a home within like the last year of his life, and my dad wasn't really allowed to go see him. It was kind of like him and his stepbrother weren't allowed to go see him because of some decision that the sisters had made.
Okay.
And that was really tough on him because him and his dad had a really good relationship. Like my grandpa taught my dad how to drive semi-truck, and like he was kind of like under the wing of like going for ride-alongs with dad to go deliver produce to Klamath Falls, and
Yeah.
and so they had a really good relationship. And towards the end there, he wasn't able to see him and wasn't able to care for him. And so I think now that my dad is starting to realize that he is starting to need 24-hour care, and he's starting to lose it like his dad did, and he wasn't able to do what I'm doing for him now. And so, I'm super grateful that I have this space and this opportunity to actually like, I have a job where I can work kind of
Remote.
flexible and remote.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if I need to take a day off, I can just go do it, most of the time.
That's so nice, dude. Having that flexibility.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know how I would be able to do this otherwise. And then without the help of my mom and her boyfriend to help also to keep him busy and give him stuff to do. And, like right now they're taking care of him, and I don't have to worry like that he's going to do something wrong or, and so being able to have this environment is pretty awesome. And I'm starting to wonder if he's having regrets about how things went with his dad, and like he's frustrated with his sisters, but I also wonder if there's also like a hint of regret of like him not trying hard enough to like take care of his dad in the end there so that he wasn't in home by himself.
Mm-hmm.
And so one crazy story about my grandpa when he was in his like last moments is he started to ask for his boys. He wanted to see his boys. And this was when I went to see him, and I mean, he was like a shell of a body at that point. Like you could hardly see his soul in him anymore. And like,
Jeez.
who knows what kind of drugs they had him on to like keep him sedated. And the day that my dad and his stepbrother were able to go see my grandpa, the next day my grandpa passed. And so it was like he was holding out to see his sons one last time. And that like really sucks for my dad because he only saw him like at the last moment,
last day,
when it was like very much like not his father anymore, and like it was, you know, just like a wisp of what he was.
God, that sucks, dude.
Yeah, I mean, that was hard for me to go see my grandpa at that time. I can only imagine what it was like for my dad.
Yeah.
And so he's definitely had, my dad's been having a really hard time with things lately because he feels like, you know, he feels like he's taking advantage of everybody because he doesn't really have a whole lot of money, and we're trying to get him on Social Security, and he's relying on us to watch him and take care of him. And, you know, I try to tell him like, that's just like, that's what family does. Like, you know, we take care of you, and like,
Yeah.
you know, like I work to take care of my family, and that's also my dad.
Yeah.
And I knew this day was coming. I didn't really quite expect it now. And like, I thought maybe I had another few years to like prepare for it.
Yeah.
Mentally, emotionally.
Life kind of comes at you fast.
Yeah. And it's like curveball from like what me and Ashley were planning originally. Just like 6 months prior, we'd kind of had like, okay, here's our 5-year plan, and like, here we go. We got this. And then it's
life's
like,
no.
You don't get it.
We
that
have
easy.
a different plan for you.
Yeah. But it's also like ignited in me even like more reason to have my business succeed. You know, like I could have easily taken this as like, here's my white flag moment. Like I get to like surrender and not do this business thing anymore. And
Right. Yeah.
you know, why would I try to build a business when I need to take care of this right now?
Yeah, true.
But I kind of definitely see it as the other way around, where it's like, no, I must succeed because of the situation that's happening right now.
Yeah. Good point.
Because it's like, there was no other way, you know, like I want to provide a good last few years. I don't know how long, you know, I mean, my dad's still young, but I mean, my grandpa made it to like 73, I think. And so, you know, his body is physically fit, but his mind is definitely the part that's aging quickly. And, you know, we're hoping that diet and lifestyle, and, you know, we're going to be trying to do more holistic healing, and, you know, try to get him to a point that maybe is more manageable and kind of is more, you know, where he doesn't progressively get worse and worse.
Right. Just kind of stabilize things.
Yeah. I mean, that's our hope. And so recently what we ended up doing was, we are now all living in the house together.
Oh, wow.
Like as of just yesterday.
Is it a big house?
Yeah, it's a pretty decent sized house. And it's kind of like split up into 2 parts. And so there's 2 bedrooms on one side of the house, and then like the master bedroom upstairs on the other side of the house. And then the kitchen kind of in the middle.
How is that for your mom's boyfriend?
I mean, he's been a trooper for it. I mean, he definitely like sees that, you know, like my dad needs somebody to take care of him, and he took care of his dad when he was about my age, when he was starting to kind of slip.
Wow,
you
it's
know,
kind of a pattern for the Svarens
well,
household.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's like, you know, it's an interesting dynamic for sure. And you know, I'm sure there's been like moments of tension between my mom and him, my
Sure.
mom and her boyfriend, just because, I mean, just like there's been moments of tension between me and my girlfriend, because it's like suddenly there is someone else who is requiring your partner's attention and time and energy.
And not really by choice.
Right.
Yeah.
And, having to deal with that is unreal. And like, I can't even begin to put myself in the shoes of my girlfriend who's having to go through this.
Mm-hmm.
And just like she can't put herself in my shoes fully of what I'm having to go through.
Right.
And so, I mean, it's kind of taking like the whole team to go through all this together, because it's like definitely like pass the party around a little bit of like, okay, like you've put your time in, like go take a break, and I got it from here kind of thing. And
yeah, jeez, dude.
It seems like it's been good that he's now in the house with us. We're all going to bed at the same time. The lights go out. He doesn't have to worry about the propane running out in his furnace and like texting me or calling me at 3:00 in the morning to come change it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it wouldn't even be out. He would just think it's out, or like would flip a switch. And, and that was fucking exhausting.
So things are starting to get a bit more routine, I suppose.
Yeah, we're getting there. I mean, it'll be interesting to see once, it's been like a week or so and we kind of have time to like shake things out for sure. But it definitely seems to be helping to be more on a routine with everybody. And
yeah,
it's also great for me because it makes it so that I'm not the one who's, waking him and putting him to sleep all the time. And like, it's not just me having to do that. Like I can kind of like hand things off more quickly, versus before it was kind of like, okay, like time to go. I'm going to like, notoriously I would wake up at like 7:30 to go get my dad his pills, and I'm exhausted because I hardly got any sleep the night before, because I was up till like 11 o'clock with him, and then he wakes me up at 3:00. Yeah. And so then it's like, okay, I'm going to go run over there really quick, give him his pills, get him started on his day, and I'm going to come back here and I'm going to meditate and brush my teeth and shower. And like half the time I would go over there and I'd be like, and then he would be in a loop and they'd be like, well, fuck, there goes that plan. Like I can't just like come in and out,
be able to
just pop in and out,
mix it up really quickly.
Yeah. So now at least he's in the house. So it's like, it's all under one roof and I don't have to like go back and forth. And so now our fifth wheel is going to start to become more of an office space for me and Ashley. So that's also nice, because then it's like, okay, this is like the space to do work in, and I know I don't have to worry when I'm in here. But yeah, so it's been a lot.
Sounds like a lot, man. You were talking about this diet, and I know that you're vegan.
Yep.
Is that the kind of a diet that you have him on too?
Not entirely, because my mom and her boyfriend still eat meat. But he's definitely we're trying to get him on a lot more fiber, and like greens and, all good things for you, antioxidants, smoothies. And,
have you noticed that improving him?
It's definitely seems to help when he gets good food in him. We used to think that it was
Imagine the diet would have an effect.
Well, and it used to be that we used to think that this was almost caused by like low blood sugar, because it used to be that, oh, well, if he gets a meal in him, then he's better. But now that doesn't seem to hold up its weight anymore like it used to. I do still think it's incredibly important, because it helps him to not be like running on fumes, and
it offers some support.
Yeah, and so we've also started supplementing him with vitamin D and B12, because those were both a little bit low in his blood work recently in Texas. And then we're just trying all sorts of other things to try to figure out, what stuff we can do to give him that's going to be good for his brain.
Yeah.
And kind of help with Alzheimer's or dementia-like symptoms.
I feel like that's kind of universal. Like everybody should be supplementing with vitamin D and vitamin B. Like I just started taking those regularly. Got my blood work done with my doctor, and he was like, dude, you've got the greatest vitamin D levels ever.
Nice.
Which is nice. He said that, what is it, like 80% of the U.S. population is
it's something huge.
deficient in vitamin D?
Yeah.
So when he read my blood work, he was really proud.
Nice.
And I was too. And so I've just kept doing that. And I noticed that with starting this medication that I'm on, it helps to regulate my mood like way better, especially the vitamin. I think it's methylated vitamin B or something.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Methyl B12.
Yeah.
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 That's supposed to be the best
super
one for absorption.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, B12 and D are both things that we're lacking a lot of because it's like sunlight and dirt. Because that's where B12 comes from, is from the bacteria and dirt.
Oh, from dirt?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was just the sun.
No, so B12, D comes
D
from,
from
the
the sun.
Yeah, which we're all working inside, or it's cloudy half the year, or you live too far north from the equator to actually get vitamin D.
Yeah.
But B12 is bacteria based, so it's like a byproduct of bacteria, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And so it used to be that we would eat food from the ground and like be living and playing in the dirt.
But now we all just eat
sterile food that's like super clean, and we don't want dirt on our
It's
carrots.
not even real.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all grown in the lab.
Yeah, just like our B12 supplement.
That's true, dude. So the best way to get vitamin B12 naturally is just standing in the dirt?
Well, you have to like eat the dirt, basically.
Oh.
So like don't clean, like get produce from a local farm that's like an organic farm, and then just like don't wash the produce that much. So like your carrots and stuff like that, like it's okay to have a little bit of dirt on your carrots and your greens and stuff like that. So
a lot of minerals in the dirt.
That's true too.
Especially in this Oregonian rich soil.
Yes. So long as it's not a monocropped field.
Right.
You should be all right.
Man, it's freaking hard.
Yeah.
Well, I know you have to go in a few minutes.
I do.
So we should probably wrap it. But dude, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's a wild,
just the life circumstance that you've been thrown into and just how you're handling. I've been curious about that. Just how you're able to manage your career, your relationship with your girlfriend, just life in general, and then this relationship with your dad. Sounds like a lot.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm managing it very well, but I'm working my way through it.
Yeah.
I mean, part of it is I have to remind myself, like, the moments that I do have to myself, I need to, like, take it and use it for myself and not be thinking about what I need to do for other people.
Yeah. Is meditation a big part of that?
I definitely have been needing to meditate more and more. If I miss that, then I can really sense that I'm distracted or like trying to like almost distract myself from like the situation that I'm in.
I used to meditate quite a bit when we first moved into this place like 2 years ago. But I have stopped.
So
it's hard.
The one thing that really helped me establish like an actual habit of it, and to the point where it's almost hard for me not to do it anymore, is I did the habit loop where my trigger would be me making coffee or tea, and then the action would be sitting down to meditate for 10 minutes, and then the reward was drinking that hot cup of coffee or tea.
Oh, nice.
So 10 minutes is like just right, because the cup of coffee will be like the perfect temperature to drink it.
Okay, so just 10 minutes.
Yeah, so that's all I do is 10 minutes, because otherwise I used to do 20 minutes, and I love doing 20-minute sessions, but I just never feel like I can commit to 20 minutes, whereas 10 minutes is like, okay, you can afford 10 minutes. Like, you waste 10 minutes 100 times over most of the time anyways.
Do you think that meditation has to be done in like a quiet, seated place, like as opposed to up when you're doing something?
I think that there's opportunity in both situations.
The reason I ask that is because I find that going to the gym is fairly meditative for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of times when I'm just on my phone distracted the whole time, but then I try to go sit in a sauna, but I'm just like listening to podcasts and
right,
Audible books and stuff. So I feel like in the sauna, I get a little bit of that because it's a time when I'm just sitting down, feeling uncomfortable, which I associate that with meditation.
Oh,
it's just
100%.
kind of uncomfortable.
It is, yeah. I mean, that's like the reason I like to do ice exposure.
Oh yeah, I saw you sent me that on
New Year's Day. Yeah, on New Year's Day, I
Dude.
jumped into a pool that had like 4 inches of ice.
Was that on your property?
Yeah. That's
Dude, I want to come down there and try that sometime.
Yeah, man. I'd love to have you there.
Ice bath.
Yeah. Do some Wim Hof breathing before.
Is that what you were doing in the video?
Yeah. So I did like 3 rounds before I jumped in on the porch there, just to help get my mind space right. You know, like, and I think that is a huge thing, is like being 100% aware of like your body right now. Like you don't have a choice when you're thrust into cold water, but to pay attention to what's going, like, you can't think about, but I got to remember to do this later today. Like that thought does not cross your mind
right
at that moment when you're dipping your body into cold water.
It's just how uncomfortable it is, and when can I get out of here?
Well, and I really try to focus on, okay, like I'm breathing into my body and like trying to warm my body, and so I'm really like focused on my body and what's going on in it. I'm not focused on the external world.
I kind of do that when after the sauna, I'll jump in the shower and take like an ice cold shower at the gym, and it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I just focus. The mental space that I put myself in is similar to what you were explaining with the duties that you have to just do with your dad. You just do it. I'm just like, this is just what I'm doing right now. I'm just going to be cold for a minute or two.
Right.
And then it's over.
Yeah.
And then I don't feel like in pain afterwards. I feel good.
Right.
And I know that it's going to feel good. So I just focus, this is what I'm doing. There's studies that say this is good for me. So I'm just doing it, and it does feel good.
Yeah. And I think that is what meditation is. If you're sitting alone in a quiet room with nothing, I usually do guided meditations. So there'll be somebody kind of like, I do the Sam Harris Waking Up app.
Oh yeah, I have that app.
And so I do the daily meditation there. And so it's different every time. But I think the biggest thing is that I am setting aside everything else for 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. Like before that 10 minutes, I'm like emails. I got to do this text. I gotta do all this stuff today. Yeah. And I'm like all over the place. And then it's like, okay, 10 minutes. I'm just going to like set everything to the side for a few minutes. Everything will be there when I come back. Right. It's okay. And having that 10 minutes to like just observe what's going on in my head, or like there's also a lot in that app where he says to like pay attention to the sounds around you. So, like you can hear the creaking of something, or like the fan or the heater. Yeah. And like just
fighting.
Yeah. And just listening to that, and like not getting like overly excited about anything, and just like taking the time to like sit at the beach and watch the waves roll in is almost what it feels like.
Just slowing down for a sec.
Yeah, because then it makes it so that when I come back, I can actually like pick things up one at a time,
right,
with a little bit more focus than just like trying to grab everything and like run.
I need to get back into it, man.
Yeah,
I'm gonna try. Well, dude, it is 1:29, so I know you have a call at 1:30, so I better let you run.
I was gonna say, can I use your space right here?
Sure, yeah, of course. But yeah, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. I appreciate you being open and vulnerable. I know it's not an easy topic, so thanks for that.
Well, thanks for having the space, and I appreciate having a space to kind of open up and talk about it where nobody's gonna hear it, right? Just me and you.
Nobody will hear this. I hope. No, I hope they do. I think that a lot of people can relate. I think that hopefully this kind of thing can help.
Yeah.
Family dynamics are difficult, and everybody's got one.
Right. And life ain't easy.
True.
But if you're tough on yourself, they say life gets infinitely easier. So
I like that. Hard men make easy times, or whatever that.
Oh, yes. Hard men make easy times. Easy times make weak men, and weak men create tough. I can't remember. Yeah. Weak men create tough times. Tough times create tough men. Tough men create easy times. Easy times create weak men.
There it is.
Yeah.
What a great way to end this.
Yep.
All right. Cool, man.
Peace.
Bye, everybody.